your natural tendency when you start feeling depressed is to isolate, because you often feel ashamed, embarrassed, and you just don't feel like being around anyone. Do you know why your tendency is to isolate? Your feelings will lead you that way every single time. You need to realize that your emotions lie to you. They're like the Dow Jones. They go up and down. There's good ones and there's bad ones. And when you trust in the bad ones, they will always lead you to the wrong place. Now, please understand that depression is a very complex issue. There are just multiple layers to it: psychological, mental, emotional, and even spiritual. So keep that in mind as I go through these three things. First thing to keep in mind is that Elijah had faulty thinking. Elijah was doing what psychologists call ruminating. And ruminating is a disorder where we engage in what's called self-talk. This is where we create negative things in our mind that aren't true, and we just sit there and we ruminate on those thoughts. I catch myself doing this a few hours after I speak. I just sit and kind of rehearse the message and the reaction or non-reaction to it, and I go, well, that sucked, or that was awful, God didn't use you, you should quit. And those cycles of thoughts just keep going through my mind. The second thing we learn from Elijah's story about mental health is Elijah's feelings led to isolation. That Elijah felt afraid, so he ran. And he was running away with his servant at first. Eventually, though, he left his servant and went on by himself. He isolated, which makes sense because your natural tendency when you start feeling depressed is to isolate, because you often feel ashamed, embarrassed, and you just don't feel like being around anyone. Do you know why your tendency is to isolate? Your feelings will lead you that way every single time. You need to realize that your emotions lie to you. They're like the Dow Jones. They go up and down. There's good ones and there's bad ones. And when you trust in the bad ones, they will always lead you to the wrong place. I mean, this is what happened to Elijah. He trusted in the wrong feelings, and he ended up alone and in the wrong place. Third thing we learn is that Elijah played the comparison game. Remember what he said? He said, I am no better than my ancestors. We do this all the time. Oh, my life isn't that good. I'm a failure. I'm a nobody. I don't have what it takes. I don't measure up. Let me ask you, how do you know that? You think you know that because you compare yourself with everyone else. And now we have social media, where you're comparing your miserable moments to everyone's highlight reels. But let me tell you a little secret. Nobody's life is as good as it looks on Instagram, including mine. So if you follow me, I might make it look pretty, but it's not all that pretty. I posted this picture on Thanksgiving. And look at this picture. We all look happy, right? But trust me, we were anything but happy on Thanksgiving. But I'm not going to post that. And I'm not going to post something where I say, oh, here's a picture of me saying something I regret to my wife. I'm not going to post that, and either is anyone else. But this is important because it leads to the faulty thinking, and we just start ruminating on that stuff. Well, if you're struggling with depression, or you know someone who is, I want to spend the rest of my time getting real practical with you. And the way that I want to do that is I want to give you one word that if you think through this filter, it'll go a long way to help. And it's a word we see in Elijah's story. Here's our word: engage. With depression, our tendency is to isolate or disengage, so it makes sense that a big part in battling it is to learn to engage. And so here are 3 ways I want to encourage you to engage. Here's the first way. I want you to engage physically. Right after Elijah prayed, I've had enough, God, take my life, God begins to care for him. Listen to what he says. It says, then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then he lay down again. So notice what Elijah does. First, he takes a nap. Actually, he takes 2 of them. Many of you are going through life at an unsustainable pace, and it's not only messing you up physically, but it's also messing up your mind. You need to slow down because eventually you're going to crash. After this, I want to encourage you to go home if you're not home right now. I want you to turn off all your devices. I want you to lay down on your couch or on your bed and take a long nap. And you know what? I want you to do it in Jesus' name. And if someone says, you don't have time to take a nap right now, you just say, I'm just applying what I learned in church today. You might think, I have too much to do. You always do. Take a nap. God showed up for Elijah, and he'll show up for you as well. Well, Elijah not only takes a nap, he also eats. One of the best things that you can do is to just go sit down and have a 1 to 2 hour meal with family or close friends and just enjoy connecting with one another through conversations. And then take a nap. You know, the third thing that you can do is you can engage in exercise. The body is one of the most effective things that we can do to help move us out of the state of depression. Recently, there was a study done where they took a large group of people who struggled with major depression. And then they took this group of people and prescribed 20 to 30 minutes of walking each day. I mean, that was the prescription. Well, they tracked this group of people and found that 65% of them, after the study ended, after just doing 20 to 30 minutes of walking every day, were no longer depressed. Is it a silver bullet? No. Again, because depression is very complex. But just that one thing of engaging the body and getting the blood going went a long way to helping. So first thing I want you to start doing is I want you to start engaging physically. The second thing I want you to do to engage is I want you to engage your mind in what is true. Literally, think about what you think about. In Elijah's story, he was ruminating. Oh God, I'm the only one in this entire country that is committed to you. But here's what God said to him. He said, yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal and whose mouths have not kissed him. And so Elijah is ruminating, oh God, I'm the only one. And God responds back, actually, Elijah, that's not true. There are 7,000 just like you. Now, this is so important because we need something to counter our faulty thinking. This is why each day, the first thing I do when I get up, after getting the coffee, of course, I spend some time with God, read the Bible, spend some time in prayer. I start my day filling my mind with truth. Here's what Jesus said about the importance of filling our mind with truth. He said this, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. See, according to Jesus, here's why truth is important. Because truth leads to freedom. I have a counselor friend who, when I talk to him about my ruminating issue I referred to earlier, he'll say this every time. He'll say, Mark, I want you to grab onto what's true. Ask yourself what's really true. Every time I do that, it breaks the cycle of self-talk and I experience freedom from it. Third way that I want you to engage. I want you to engage in community. Look at what God did for Elijah. It says, also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from Abel Molah, to succeed you as prophet. Now, I hope I never have to read that verse again. But what did God do for Elijah? He brought him Elisha. Research shows that isolation is one of the worst things you can do for depression. Because isolation is like putting on an internal mask. It's our way of hiding what's really going on. God's solution for that isolation is community. You know, this is why we talk so much about wanting everyone in a small group. Groups is not a program of our church. Groups is our church because God created us for community. You need to be around other Jesus followers who you are able to tell what's really going on in your life. When I talk about really going on, that includes things like your battle with depression. You pursue this and watch God bring healing to your life because it'll allow you to remove that internal mask and live in freedom. Recently, I was reading an interview with a nationally recognized pain expert. This person works with patients who experience chronic pain every single day, who on a pain scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, these are patients on the 8 to 10 range. So he works with patients with very difficult circumstances. During the interview, he was talking about how he can provide medications and physical therapy and some treatments to help their body, and all are important. But then he was asked, What's the most important thing that you do on the pain side? And do you know what his answer was? It might surprise you. He said, the most important thing I do is to make sure I don't destroy someone's hope. If I destroy their hope, I lose them. I don't know what you might be dealing with right now and the ripple effect of everything from last year. Either you or someone else is dealing with something. I don't know what it is. But I want you to know there's hope. That God understands, God cares, and wants to walk with you through it. And so do we. That's the beauty of the local church. When you feel like giving up and losing hope, we're all here because none of us has it all together. We're all here to keep each other from losing hope.